Fantasy Football Night in America is live, ladies and gentlemen, exclusively on the Better Sports Network. This is the FFPC Insider Access Program. My name is Eric Balkman, at Eric Balkman on X. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the FFPC over at myffpc.com, of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. You'll know my co-host tonight as the host of the Remember That Game show on the RotoViz Podcast Network. He is one Thomas Emerick, at Thomas Emerick on the X. Thomas, good Thursday evening to you, sir.
Great to be here, and great one tonight. I'm sure Lions and Cowboys will be exciting.
I think that what makes it great, and we have, by the way, we have breaking news on that I'm going to get to in a little bit. What makes it so great tonight is both of these teams in real life. You know, we always, and this will be a fantasy football show, but in real life, both of these teams are so good, especially offensively, and they both need wins really badly. So I think we're going to get a really good game tonight. And part of the reason for that really good game is a player that we weren't sure if was going to play or not. We have the results on this, and we know whether he is going to be playing or not tonight. I'm going to get into that in just a little bit here. I want to remind everybody, if you are looking for some weekly action with the FFPC, check out the FFPC Weekly Challenge. The Thursday Challenge will be open for a little bit more than an hour, and then that will lock, and then you can play the Sunday Challenge, which locks at 1 p.m. Sunday. The great thing about this Weekly Challenge, there's no draft. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players, or if you want to play with kickers and defenses, you can play with 12 players. Win up to $2,500. You can play with 10 teams, 30 teams, 100 teams, whatever you want to do over at myffpc.com. The slant, you can't have two players on the same team. So if you want Kyle Pitts, you can't have Bijan Robinson. If you want Matthew Stafford, you can't have Devontae Adams. One player per team. Register now. myffpc.com. Shout out to our producer tonight, Sean Engel. And here is the breaking news that we have coming fresh and hot to us a little bit less than 20 minutes ago. Amon-Ra St. Brown, according to Tim Twentyman, who covers the Detroit Lions, is indeed going to be active for this game tonight. Did not practice Monday, did not practice Tuesday, he did not practice Wednesday, and he is going to be active tonight. I know Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points, who's a noted Lions fan, has been saying all week that this guy was going to be active. But Thomas, being active doesn't necessarily mean being good from a fantasy perspective tonight. The reports were that he was moving well during warmups tonight, which is good. But we have seen him miss time with this injury. We have also seen him play through this injury to not great results, you know, kind of like a 5 for 60 game or something like that. Thomas, your expectation of what kind of production we're going to see from St. Brown tonight against the Cowboys pass defense that can be had, what do you think St. Brown does? Clearly not at 100% this evening.
Yeah, it's tough to tell when they're on the field and utilized primarily as a decoy. And sometimes the coaches know they don't totally have the juice, but get them out there anyways to create space for other players when you have your star out there. But if Amon-Ra is at least like 60-70%, you know, of course, if you have that knowledge ahead of time, you'd want to start him. And if you have Amon-Ra on your roster in a must-win situation, you just can't go into the offseason knowing you lost because you benched Amon-Ra when he still went for 100 and a touchdown. Just for the offseason, like that's a decision that's much easier to live with.
I think that, and this goes back to Matt Schauf was talking about this from Draft Sharks earlier this week. And I don't necessarily think this is a good strategy to subscribe to, but you brought it up. So I'm going to kind of piggyback on this. I always look at it from the standpoint of who am I going to be more ticked off that I benched, right? Am I going to be ticked off that I benched Amon-Ra St. Brown and he goes off, or I'm going to be more ticked off about benching? And I'm trying to think of a good example for this, like somebody that you probably would have been deciding between for, do I play Amon-Ra St. Brown, or do I play, I don't know, somebody like Khalil Shakir? Do I play somebody like DK Metcalf? Do I play somebody like Adonai Mitchell or whatever. And it comes down to St. Brown is such a stud. We know that what fuels this guy is hate and anger. And you know what I mean? Like he's fueled from bad places where he just wants to go out there and just take it out on everybody else. And I like that type of player in my lineup. I'm breaking ties in favor of Amon-Ra St. Brown tonight. Maybe to my own detriment, but that's the way I'm handling it. Tom Smith chiming in on YouTube, Thomas, wants to know, good evening, Balky and Thomas, do we start St. Brown? It depends upon who your other option is. In fact, I got to look this up right now. I may have, did you draft? I mean, are you facing any St. Brown dilemmas tonight, Thomas, at all?
I was completely out on the post Ben Johnson experience this offseason, so not so much. But I respect the players and the offense, and Dan Campbell's still there. And it's actually been better than I expected, though some of the offensive line issues. I read an weekly offensive line article for RotoViz, and some of those offensive line issues have hit the offense in different ways. And I feel like someone who puts up as many 100-yard, multi-touchdown games as St. Brown has, I think a decent heuristic is if they're active, you just click it.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and I'm trying to go back because I just checked my leagues. I have no St. Brown this year. At least, I do in some best ball or whatever. But as far as managed leagues, I don't have any. And I think it goes back to the whole had the offseason knee scope or whatever. You mentioned Ben Johnson moving on, where there is some question. And by the way, were we all that wrong about Ben Johnson? I mean, Dan Campbell made the decision a few weeks ago that he was going to start calling plays. So for all the John Morton evangelists out there, hasn't been super perfect as well, especially for St. Brown. So I have no shares of him. I'm not looking at him tonight. Raptor J76 is saying he's playing St. Brown. I will say, and Raptor J76 also saying that they picked up Isaac TeSlaa. I picked up Isaac TeSlaa in hopes that St. Brown would not play tonight, Thomas. And now I have to decide. And right now I moved him to my bench. I don't know if you have thoughts on this, but I could play TeSlaa tonight as the third de facto wide receiver for Detroit, or I can play a guy like Josh Downs or Colston Loveland. I'm giving myself, and you weigh in on this and let me know what you think. I'm giving myself that extra time to kind of weigh in on this. I'm sitting TeSlaa now that I know St. Brown is active, and I'll play either Downs or Loveland in my flex instead of TeSlaa. What do you think about that?
I like Downs and Loveland more. Downs, I think one was called back by penalty, but when they're gotta have it moments for the Colts in that game against the Texans, and Daniel Jones threw a very high degree of a difficulty ball to Downs on multiple occasions. I think one got called back by penalty, but Downs came down with both of those. I'm just a big Downs truther, and so I'm always, and then Loveland has come on recently. Post bye week, getting him more involved instead of command. So I like both of those. The part I was curious about a little bit was Kennedy, if Amon-Ra's out and now Kennedy's cooked, because I just assumed that's where that displacement would go, was Kennedy more than TeSlaa. But it doesn't downgrade TeSlaa as much as Kennedy for me. And if what the heck flex, I don't hate TeSlaa.
Yeah, I don't hate him either. And I still think you can, he's sort of like that low floor, high ceiling type player in a game that what's the total on this? 54.5, 55 or something like that.
Correct.
So he could end up getting 3 targets and catch 2 of them for touchdowns, for 20 some yards or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I think that's very, very interesting. So we will have more on that coming up. I would say in about 40 minutes, we'll get a full breakdown of all the lines, receivers. We'll take a look at everything from the Dallas side as well as we have our Thursday night preview. And one of the biggest Thursday night football games of the season. We'll be glad to watch at least the first part of with you here tonight on the Better Sports Network. We will also get into some start sits coming up later on in the program. Thomas and I will wax poetic on players like Chris Rodriguez, Luther Burden, Mason Taylor, Bo Nix, and much more. I will also tell you that in a couple of minutes here, we're going to go around the NFL and talk about some of these injury situations and some of the things coaches said after the Week 13 games that we need to be paying attention to for fantasy purposes. Now, Thomas, I know you do work for RotoViz for actual fantasy analysis, and you do a good job. What I think is so compelling about having you on this program tonight is you do something very unique as far as a show, podcast for RotoViz called Remember That Game. And this is what's great about it. It's evergreen content. It's nostalgic, right? And you get a guest every week, and like these guests could be anybody. You had a congressman on your last show, which was fantastic. I'll let you talk about that. But tell us a little bit about what the Remember That Game podcast is all about.
Yeah, we dive into usually an old game, sometimes a Super Bowl halftime show or a game adjacent. And then we nostalgia trip a bit, but we also kind of both dive into the guest background in ways that you might hear them talk about some things people you're a fan of that are sharing news stories about how the way they think was shaped. And the podcast is about how these games shape the way we think. So I feel like on a few levels, it's like a fun nostalgia listen, but also like I think we find some like through lines to today we happen upon. And then also each episode, like I write to the guests. So it's also just like an appreciate and me being like a fan of like a lot of the guests in some way and kind of diving into their background as well.
So on this last podcast, you're talking about a game in the ALDS, Mariners, and was it Yankees? Mariners, Yankees, 95, yeah. Right? And your guest for this was Representative Adam Smith, serving Washington State's 9th District. He's also the Democratic leader for the House Armed Services Committee. And you got him talking Mariners, Yankees. How did that happen? How did you even get him to reach out to him and get him to come on and do this show?
Yeah, so I like, it's another thing I like to do is have guests from like just all different fields talking about old games. And we have a bunch of episodes, great episodes with RotoViz folks, and love to have you on, Eric, sometime soon. And but also dive into City Nerd Ray Delahanty does like a transportation YouTube channel. We had Tim Miller, political sphere commentator, but then also I just keep seeing, okay, so what could that turn into for the next guest? And I like reached out to someone who had done content of like social media stuff with people in Congress, and I was like, hey, here's a couple more guests that are more like on the political side, but they come and talk sports and policy and governance. Would they be interested in coming on? And as a lark, I didn't really I was going to be kind of surprised if something came out of it. And then I had a couple congressmen on, one from Joe Courtney from Connecticut district with Yukon Huskies in it. And then also Representative Levin from northern San Diego County, southern Orange County, to talk about the Anaheim Angels, the Rally Monkey in 2002, and how Barry Bonds somehow did not win a World Series, how the Angels somehow won that one. And then Adam Smith, and I guess each of them had like fun time in the show. And then Adam Smith with the most recent one. And so suddenly it's just like, oh, I'm having this kind of guest. And over the years, it's been like, oh, I'm having a few this kind of guests. And another one hears the episode and digs it. And I'm like, yeah, come on the show.
It's so crazy, right? How this and this works out. And I suppose and the reason you do this, not only do the viewers and the listeners get something out of this where they're like, oh God, I remember this game, but I don't remember that aspect of it, or kind of jogs their memory. Oh yeah, that did happen. You're probably learning stuff about these games from a different perspective as well, which is pretty cool for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. There, even the past few episodes, the background on the legislative side, the inside baseball there in the early 90s in Seattle, where the Mariners, Seattle almost lost that team. And Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez and company, they with that run in 95, with the peak of that being beating the Yankees in Game 5 of the ALDS, that like most, and Adam Smith agree, like that saved baseball in Seattle, that exciting mid-90s Mariners team.
It's all there. You can check it out on the RotoViz podcast feed or anywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube. You can check it out on YouTube as well and watch the video of it. That was the latest episode. We'll talk more about it coming up later on in the show. But I do want to get into some fantasy football here to kick things off as we go around the NFL. And speaking of the Mariners, let's talk about another pro team in Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks. Kenneth Walker. Thomas, I have not seen the latest Seahawks practice update from today, but I can tell you that Kenneth Walker was limited in practice yesterday. And this was a late update that they added Walker as a limited participant for the practice. Now, this glute injury is not new for him. He's been dealing with it for week 12. He was dealing with it last week as well. I wonder how you feel about, not necessarily, you're not going to trot out Cam Akers, but I wonder how you feel about starting a guy like Kenneth Walker, knowing what Zach Charbonnet has meant to this backfield, especially inside the 5-yard line. I wonder if this is like, God, if I know Walker is being limited already in practice this week, if I know he's been dealing with this for a couple weeks, I might have to say to hell with it, bench him, and then maybe break ties in favor of Zach Charbonnet, who maybe gets a few more touches. He was already getting them close to the goal line. Now maybe gets a few more of them between the 20s as well, as we talk about this Mariners running back situation. Seahawks running backs. Yeah, remember that game on my brain as we talk about this Seahawks running back situation, Thomas.
They have the stadiums right close to each other in Seattle. Love it. Love that setup in the city, easy to get to. But over on the Seahawks side, Kenneth Walker is a victim of some pretty historic vulturing from Zach Charbonnet. And maybe there's some like, we see Walker try to take it to the corner store a little more than Charbonnet does, and maybe there's a reason the coaching staff is purposely boxing Walker out once they get closer to the goal line. But I tend to like, not quite blindly, but really counting on touchdown regression. It's not a great situation when your fantasy points per red zone rush is at the bottom of the league by country mile, down with Woody Marks, not where you want to be. But the Seahawks offense gets it across the finish line enough where I'm willing to bet there on a player with a higher explosive play rate than Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker behind only Devon Achane in that regard. And he's a lock for 15 plus touches and 3 carries. So, still we wait for the West Coast practice update at this hour. But if it's a managed situation with the glute like the last couple of weeks, then I like the usage enough for Kenneth Walker to just bet on that and then hope a touchdown sneaks in there eventually.
I think I'm with you on this in a vacuum, and I don't have Walker and Charbonnet on the same team, but I definitely am still more likely to play Walker this week than I am Charbonnet, the way a lot of my teams are structured. I think that Charbonnet is a decent flex for those FFPC main event or FFPC Big Gorilla team owners that are, in their league championships this week. I think that Charbonnet is fine there. But I do like Walker better from the perspective of putting up more fantasy points this week. Now, to another kind of muddled Carolina running back situation, let's talk about what Dave Canales had to say after the Panthers' upset win over the Rams. Now, Rico Dowdle, according to their head coach, his head coach is going to remain the team's primary early down running back. Carolina's off this week, so we'll get no data point on this until week 15. But Canales said he likes the balance that the backfield had between Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard this past week. Dowdle had 18 carries, 17 carries for Chuba Hubbard. And you can make the case that this could be the first week that we have seen Hubbard fully recovered from that calf injury that he's been dealing with for a good chunk of the season. He ran 15 routes against the Rams, and he caught He had 2 catches. One of them was for a touchdown. Dowdle only ran 6 routes. He caught both his targets as well. Canales said this quote, "Some of it was third down opportunities. We've been using Chuba primarily as our third down back, and then he gets series as we go." Now, Dowdle, this means, he's already not getting third downs, and now he gets a series taken away or whatever from what Canales is telling us. It kind of sucks because this was a guy that kind of got you to the dance, and now it's difficult if you want to play him at this point. I know I have listened to a lot of people talk about this. I have heard smart people tell me that the changing of the guard again this season to now Hubbard being the guy you want to play over Dowdle is overblown. I've also heard plenty of smart people tell me, like, no, it's happening. They paid Hubbard. They want him to be the guy, and now he's getting a chance to be the guy now that he's fully healthy. Thomas, I'd love to have you weigh in on this when we talk about how this backfield split. Again, they're on bye this week, but for the stretch run, the championship sprint in the FFPC coming up here, I wonder how you think this Carolina backfield is going to be divvied up going forward.
Yeah, you definitely don't love it if you're in the types of leagues where you go out into like a global tournament and you're playing against possibly hundreds of people to advance a small number of those. Even with, Dowdle getting 20 total touches and Hubbard 19 touches, like that you can live with a little more, and it's the season long, 12-teamer where you're not feeding out into another pool for the playoffs. Like you can live with that, but for some of those, like larger tournaments, you're not loving it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to whether Dowdle is still playing through something. I'm gonna have a bit of a wonder there, because it seemed like Hubbard was playing through injury before he finally sat earlier this season. Canales strikes me, I don't know, he could be a hot hand coach. I don't have and you obviously have to accept that, unlike peak Dowdle season when you're looking at 25 to 35 touches a week, crazy. Now I'm penciling it in for 10 to 20 touches a week for Dowdle. So I guess that makes me a little more bearish on Dowdle than relative to Canales' comments.
It's certainly frustrating. And I'll tell you what else makes it more frustrating. Where Dowdle was drafted in FFPC leagues this year, ain't nobody drafting him as a top 2 running back on their team, unless you did the crazy, wait, not that it's crazy, but the whole wait on running back, 0 RB, and maybe Dowdle was drafted as your second running back. But by and large, most people were drafting Dowdle as usually their 4th running back, sometimes 3rd, sometimes 2nd, I guess. But most of the time it was number 4, maybe even number 5 in some cases. And if that's the case, now all of a sudden you have to sort of reevaluate how you think about Dowdle going forward when you are considering that, you have other options that are healthy and are ready to play and are maybe getting more volume than Dowdle is as well. With Chuba Hubbard getting healthy, this really hurts Dowdle, and it really makes lineup decisions going forward a lot more tougher. Thankfully, you won't have to make that decision this week. We'll talk more about the Carolina Panthers next week when they are back in action and off their bye. Let's go out to Los Angeles. The most talked about non-throwing hand in the NFL quarterback circles this year has been Justin Herbert. Has surgery on his non-throwing hand on Monday and then practicing this week for the Chargers. In fact, Daniel Popper posted on X that Justin Herbert did indeed practice today. He was throwing passes while he had a cast/brace/ we're not sure what it was on his non-throwing hand. And we'll see. I mean, he's probably going to be a limited participant. But remember, this is basically the Wednesday practice for the Chargers, since they play on Monday Night Football, to gum up the works even more. Probably a good sign that Herbert is practicing the first practice of the week. But at the same time, when he did hurt this hand, we saw a lot of stuff out of shotgun. We did not see a whole lot of handoffs from Justin Herbert on after he hurt it, which is fine if you're playing against a bad, porous defense. They got the Eagles on Monday Night Football. and it's Monday night. So you're either rolling the dice or picking up Easton Stick or something like that. I don't know what you want to do here with Justin Herbert. Thomas Herbert this week, his hand is a mystery wrapped in a riddle and smothered in secret sauce. I don't know what to think about this. What's your insight into it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking he's in, baby. Non-throwing hand. They're gonna put a big old oven mitt on that left hand, similar to last week, and yeah, I suppose it could be wrong, but in a situation where, I mean, with Baker, I think it was like his shoulder, and perhaps like his whole arm that season with the Browns, and then recently on the Sunday nighter, it being just further down the hand. I mean, you wonder, Amari and Hampton, I guess, is supposed to be back Monday night, so you do think about the exchange there for Hampton or Vidal if he maintains some work and Hampton's on a pitch count. But as far as Herbert and the Chargers receiving options, I'm full go as usual. I'm not even downgrading based on the hand.
I think that in regards to the entire Chargers offense, one of the things that's not really talked about a whole lot is the offensive line, right? And how bad that's been with the injuries to Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Obviously, it has kind of neutered what should have been a really, really good offense this year. And now they're just kind of trying to float and keep from drowning. That usually means more stuff for Rondé Gadsden, maybe more stuff for Keenan Allen. I expect nothing from Quentin Johnston on Monday Night Football. So anything I get, I'll be pleasantly surprised with. And then Ladd McConkey, I still think is going to be, sort of a poor man's McConkey in putting up numbers at a minimum. I could just see him blowing up as well. So while I probably should be putting a little bit more emphasis on this hand injury, I think I'm kind of with you, Thomas. It's going to affect it, but I don't know if it's going to change my fantasy lineup decisions drastically here. Another quarterback situation that has been just awful to deal with over the last month or so has been in Minnesota. And for all of my Minnesota people that are watching this tonight, I apologize in advance. This is not going to be fun to talk about. J.J. McCarthy has cleared concussion protocol. And I would expect that he is going to be out there this week after the Max Brosmer experiment went horribly wrong. And we know that Minnesota cannot have fantasy value for any of their players as long as Brosmer is their quarterback. McCarthy may be a little bit different a decision here. McCarthy, a pedigreed quarterback, former first-round pick, that at least has shown flashes, I guess, but he's been more bad than good. The good thing for McCarthy and the Vikings this week is they get to take on a Washington Commanders defense that is also no bueno. Now, is it as bad as McCarthy's been at quarterback? Probably not, but it's still not great. When you look at McCarthy practicing in full, clearing concussion protocol, you're obviously not playing him in a start one quarterback league. But Thomas, what does this do for some of the ancillary pieces in Minnesota? The Jordan Addisons of the world, the TJ Hawkinsons of the world, Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones. How much more confidence do you have with McCarthy back there now against this Commanders defense, knowing that Brosmer is probably not going to have anything to do with the outcome of this game on Sunday?
Yeah, more confidence than in Brosmer, because I'm a sick person. I remember that game about the Week 13 Vikings at Seahawks, and stories like having money on Vikings plus 12 and then feeling pretty good, like, oh, Vikings about to take the lead, like well into the first half, and then Brosmer does that pass, and then feel like an idiot. That could, well, anyways, hopefully we get around to that one. And now JJ McCarthy also featured plenty in those like worst EPA games of the year charts with Brosmer. Not as bad as Brosmer, but pretty bad. I am not starting anyone except on the miserable in the offseason / start your studs heuristic of playing Jetta. But outside of Justin Jefferson, I'm not getting Addison. The backfield's a little. I guess Aaron Jones is doing some injury in practice. So that even if it's him or Mason, especially if Jones is in, I don't want either. Hawkinson, Addison toast. No, I can't roll with any of it except Jetta.
I think that there are probably a few people watching tonight that would say, well, listen, Thomas, I don't even know if I should be starting Justin Jefferson with JJ McCarthy out there. I'm not willing to go that far. However, I will say, if you ask me specifically about Jefferson, I think this is the first week I can tell you that, maybe there are some players that you drafted behind him that maybe you can start over him this week. I'll lead it off with a guy I absolutely love this week. And if it comes down to it, as long as he's healthy enough and active to play, I would start Chris Olave over Justin Jefferson this week. Olave against Tampa. Jameson Williams tonight. To me, it's a slam dunk. Williams over Jefferson this week. Rashee Rice, yes. George Pickens, yes. And hopefully it doesn't come down to that. Hopefully you can play both of those players on your games. But I think like there was this narrative last year that Jefferson was quarterback proof. And I think by and large he was because Darnold had an amazing season. And now we're seeing this year, maybe not as quarterback proof as we thought. But still, you got to grit your teeth. You got to squirm in your seat. You got to really clench in order to sit Justin Jefferson this week. But I think it's on the table for some teams, Thomas.
No one is 9 proof. No one is 9 proof.
No one is 9 proof. And that might be one of my fantasy football team names for 2026. No one is 9 proof, which is totally true. Okay. In a bit of shocking contract news that we got, at least shocking to me. I don't know how you felt about it. This came out yesterday. Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network posted that the Baltimore Ravens extended Mark Andrews with a 3-year, $39.3 million contract. Now, if we look back on the history of what Baltimore has done, I don't want to say they're draft and develop because that's part of it. But they tend to, if you show out as a Raven, you probably are going to keep getting contracts from the Ravens. This is still weird. Eric DeCosta, the GM for the Ravens, signs Mark Andrews to this 3-year extension, who is 30 years old. It's not like he's at the peak of his powers. This is going to be his worst, or at least he's on pace for the worst year of his career by yards per game and yards per route run. Now, we have to talk, if you're going to talk about Mark Andrews' down season, I think we have to talk about Lamar Jackson's down season as well, because certainly that plays a role into it. It plays a role when you consider that if Jackson's probably going to have a down year, you would assume Andrews is probably having a down year, which is what we're seeing as well. He has been the tush push ball carrier. So, I mean, I guess there's that. In Baltimore, 9 carries for 6 first downs and 1 touchdown this year. And now he's under contract through 2028. For dynasty owners who had Isaiah Likely, this is a bit of a gut punch, especially in the FFPC tight end premium streets. Kind of scratching my head on this one. Clearly the Ravens see something that I'm not seeing. Andrew's now going to be a Raven for the next 3 years, unless there could be some funny money on this contract too, Thomas, where he could be cut after next year or the year after or whatever. But I was definitely taken aback and caught off guard with Andrew signing a 3-year extension with Baltimore.
Yeah, I guess we'll see where the void year is. Like if the null's like, okay, it's going to be void after year 2, I'm guessing. But I think either way, you're not enthused. I mean, and for likely, you could be enthused if you get a sense that he will be in a different team in the near future. But if they then lock in likely next, you're not too happy in dynasty. And Mark Andrews, I'll go bat for that play at the end against the Bills in the playoffs. At that proximity, that cold, the ball not being where you expect it to be as a big guy. I think it's tougher. I think that one was tougher than it was made out to be, that one he and Lamar couldn't connect on. But I don't know. He'll be 33 by the end of that contract, which in tight end years, I mean, you can get along well into the 30s, as I found out when I traded Kelsey a couple years ago in Dynasty. But yeah, I don't. Obviously, if you have Andrews in Dynasty, I think you're feeling pretty good.
You're feeling great, and if you have Likely, you're feeling awful. Just it stinks. But this is fantasy football. Speaking of fantasy football, I hope Epic Domo 14 is still watching us on Twitch. He's got a couple of start sets for us tonight. So let's go to him right now. When we talk about these, this is a flex question. Number one, he's got he can play Ashton Jeanty against the Denver Broncos this week, or he could play Courtland Sutton, who is hosting I beg your pardon. He is on the road in Las Vegas. So it's Courtland Sutton. They're in the same game. It's Courtland Sutton or it's Ashton Jeanty. Which one would you start this week, Thomas? I'll let you go first, and then I'll give my thoughts.
I feel like I have to go against Jeanty because a few weeks ago when they added Jackson Powers Johnson to their already injury addled offensive line along with Colton Miller, I'm like, okay, so now their two only good offensive linemen are gone. All right, so this Jeanty situation is cooked. But now just this Sunday night, we see Patrick get involved and look pretty good and steal some of that pie from Courtland Sutton and the Broncos receiving core. So slight edge to Ashton Jeanty, but not by much.
I will say this. The Broncos rush defense is like top 5 in so many categories. So it's, and the Raiders offensive line has been awful. That said, Jeanty's receiving numbers have actually been making him start worthy, right? You know, if you look at what he's done the past few weeks, 6 for 30, 8 for 58 and a touchdown, 6 for 27, 3 for 3, which was bad, but then 5 for 47 and a touchdown before that. So 4 out of his last 5 weeks, dude has had, multiple double-digit performances just on the receiving side. And then you throw in the gravy of, 42 yards rushing, 60 yards rushing, 50 yards rushing, 31 yards rushing, and then a touchdown. And with Denver seemingly changing who their primary and who their secondary receiver is every week between Bryant and Sutton and Mims and Franklin, I do think there is a little bit more of a higher floor, at least from my standing, with Jeanty over Sutton. Now, you want to say you want to start Sutton over Jeanty, totally get it. And I don't think that's a horrible call. It could, quite frankly, in my opinion, 40-45% chance of being the right call. But I would play Jeanty over Sutton. You're saying Sutton over Jeanty, and we have not helped out Epic Domo at all. It's a tie.
Let's go Jeanty. Let's go Jeanty.
You're gonna go Jeanty. Okay, there you go.
I was very close on it. You know what? I wouldn't want us to look bad on account of Sean Payton's
Well, here's the thing. Sean Payton is going to make us look silly in some regard on this, right? It is what it is. He's going to Payton us. The second question that Epic Domo has tonight is a tight end question. And I think this is an interesting one and something that FFPC players are facing in a lot of leagues. He can play Kyle Pitts at home against the Seahawks, or his other option is Juwan Johnson at Tampa. Now, Thomas, Juwan Johnson is like, given how difficult it is to get a good performance from your starting tight end, if you did not draft Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers, or Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson's floor has actually been pretty solid, mostly over the course of the last several weeks. 5 for 39. 6 for 46, 4 for 92 and a touch, 3 for 31 and a touch, 5 for 53, 5 for 79. You have to go back to week 6 where he wasn't right around 15 FFPC tight end premium points. So it's difficult for me to say like, oh yeah, Juwan Johnson has to ride the bench in favor of Kyle Pitts. Well, I think I might say that this week. Kyle Pitts against the Seahawks is certainly not the greatest matchup. He is coming off a really good game, 7 for 82 against the Jets. It looks like no Drake London again this week, and maybe that's what it comes down to, right? If London is active, well, then you sit Pitts and you play Johnson. But if London misses again, which it looks like he's going to, I think I'd go Pitts here.
I'm going to Pitts, probably maybe the higher upside. Actually, I even hesitate to say that. Juwan Johnson with that consistency, plus the ceiling raiser of the Bucs pass defense right now. And that ultimate pass funnel has me tip my answer just over Juwan Johnson there. Plus Tyler Shuck, kind of serviceable for keeping the fantasy trains running, you know?
I think that Shook, I can't remember who said this. I heard it somewhere this week. Maybe it was Siegel or Gretsch or Com Kelly or somebody. But he has had, since he's taken over the starting gig in New Orleans, he's had 2 top 12 quarterback performances. So it's not like he's been this, just awful landmine that just destroys everything on his offense. He's actually had a couple of good games, and he could have another good game this week. It is close. I think you look at it from the standpoint of it's like, okay, well, do I need ceiling or floor? I think a lot of people are looking for ceiling this time of year. And then maybe you go with Pitts, but if floor is going to get you the championship, if floor is going to get you where you want to be in week 15, then by all means, go with Juwan Johnson. Okay. Let's talk about another Buccaneer, Mike Evans. Limited practice. I believe the latest is he got in another limited practice today. And what's fun about this and what's so maddening is those of us who drafted Mike Evans or had him on dynasty teams, Thomas, are very excited to have this guy back. Collarbone injury has kept him out. He's kept him on IR. Limited in practice yesterday and today. He's got a chance to play against that Saints defense this week. There could be some rust, certainly when you miss as much time, even with a veteran as Mike Evans is, who probably doesn't need that much ramp-up time. Here's what's compelling. Baker Mayfield is still dealing with that shoulder injury, which he played through last week. But you got Mike Evans. You got Chris Godwin. You got Emeka Egbuka. You got Cade Otton. And, oh, by the way, Jalen McMillan had his practice window opened up, too, off of IR. There could be – this is the whole mouse the feed argument. And with Evans coming off, if he does play this week, coming off an extended absence, I do think in the leagues I have him in, I am more likely to sit him than play him if he's active, because I just don't know the landscape that he's walking into, and I just don't know how much how much volume they're going to give him in Week 14, even in a good matchup against New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm going to be again the start your studs corollary there, but also I'm really bullish on the Bucs pass offense down the stretch. I think that combined with the pass defense, struggling a bit, Jamel Dean getting injured, both of Tampa's tackles getting healthy earlier in the season. They couldn't get Wirfs and Gadecki on the field at the same time. That's one of the best bookend tackle situations in the league. And for a guy like Baker, who is playing, through that injury, like something you want, and you don't want him running for his life as much. So if I have any tiebreaker between Evans and another player, like I'm really, it's a little bit like, oh yeah, it's Mike Evans I'm starting, but also I just think the Bucs offense is one that's gone through a bit of a slump, but is in good position to be at a higher level than they had in the middle of the season.
You mentioned Tristan Wirfs. We have to mention him because he caught a touchdown this past week too. So there's all these threats on this Tampa offense. And they're not just limited to receivers, tight ends, and running backs. We have to worry about the tackles as well in this situation.
Love to see it.
It's
I mean, not if I'm a Mike Evans owner, I wouldn't love to see it. But
no, I would not. No, we love to see it unless it affects us in fantasy. Then we hate to see it. 100%. Let's go to YouTube. Trevor Murray, can we still start Isaac Tesla? I think we went over this a little bit. I think you break ties against Tesla tonight, but certainly if you're looking for ceiling and you know you're up against it this week, I think Tesla is fine for a flex here. What waiver wide receiver running back would you rather start over Tesla? There's a bunch. I think it comes down to, with respect to how we do this show, I think it comes down to personal preference. Go with your gut on that, because I think there are a lot of good options right now. Now that we know ARSB is playing tonight, you could probably find somebody off your waiver wire that you might trust a little bit more than Isaac Tesla, who's kind of becoming a dart throw tonight. And maybe it's a big dartboard and a big dart, but still, we'll see what happens with Tesla. I think you could find somebody else on your waiver wire. Let's see. Jamison Williams or Emeka Egbuka with Amon-Ra St. Brown back. This is from Sonar the Best FR on YouTube. I love the YouTube names that people come up with. So we have a situation where Jamison Williams still could be the number one receiver tonight, but he also may not be. If St. Brown was moving around good as reported before in the warmups tonight, maybe Jamison Williams drops back down to the number 2 option. And this is a case where if you are playing Jamison Williams, you are sitting Emeka Egbuka, who, again, we just talked about this, Thomas, like, Evans and Godwin and Otten and all these other guys. What is the smart play? What's the play that Sonar the Best FR should be doing tonight? Sitting Jamison Williams in favor of Emeka Egbuka, or sitting Egbuka in favor of one Whiskey Bill?
Well, now that Dan Campbell has taken the wheel at play calling, it's JMO every week. Even versus Egbuka, who started well, and again, like much of the Bucs offense had a mid-season slump, and we'll see. I think the overall pie of the Bucs offense gets bigger. We'll see what part of that pie Egbuka gets, but Dan Campbell's not finding ways to box JMO out of the game. Dan Campbell's getting him the ball, and I mean, you see that speed on the move. Any 5-yard catch can go for 60. I go JMO.
I think it is too. I mean, like you're considering sitting Williams for the same reasons I think you'd be considering sitting Egbuka, right? Egbuka could be in a situation where, number one, he hasn't been all that great over the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's had maybe one good or one above average performance over the last month and a half, right? And he's got all the other players. I mentioned all the Buccaneers receivers he's got to contend with. Well, what is Jamison Williams contending with? A hobbled Amon-Ra St. Brown, a rookie in Isaac Tesla, a member of the Kennedy family, apparently.
Another one.
Yeah, Tom Kennedy playing tonight. I don't know if that's true or not. And by the way, do we know? Is he descended from the actual Kennedy
He's
family?
Part of a Kennedy family. We can
He's part of a
that.
Kennedy. Yeah, exactly. Like, ask not what Amon-Ra St. Brown can do for you, but ask what Jamison Williams will do for you tonight. I don't know. And you have no Sam Laporta as well. So I still think in a shootout type game, 55 with the total tonight, you have to believe that Jamison Williams is still going to figure into that. Even with St. Brown coming back, I'm going to play Williams. I'm going to sit Egbuka if that's the decision presented to me. Keep it in the NFC North, talking about the Lions. Let's now talk about the Packers here. Jayden Reed, limited in practice yesterday. Jayden Reed, the wide receiver for Green Bay, in practice today was limited once again. We'd love to see a full participation. I know, I'm in Northeast Wisconsin, so as a Packers enthusiast, I wouldn't say fan, I would love to see Jayden Reed back out on the field against the Bears at Lambeau Field this weekend. There is no Tucker Kraft gumming up the works for Jayden Reed over the middle and the underneath routes. If he comes back, his biggest contention is probably Christian Watson, who's been doing a pretty good impression of a number one wide receiver. I'm excited to get Reed back on the field from a fantasy standpoint. I have him on a bunch of leagues in leagues where people dropped him, and I picked him up when he was getting closer to coming back off of IR. I'm excited for fantasy. If he's active this week, I still break ties against him just because I don't think they're going to give him the full complement of snaps and routes. I do think, he'll play some and he'll factor into the game. But for fantasy-wise, I'm more excited to see him play this game and then maybe start him in week 15. I don't know if I want to play him right away. How do you gauge this Jayden Reed situation, which, he could miss again this week, Thomas, as well. But if he does play, how do you handle him?
Yeah, the only person more indecipherable about their wide receiver usage than Sean Payton is probably Matt LaFleur. And with Reed back in the mix, I'm not the first game back. I'm not touching that this week. I was on Thanksgiving pouring one out for all the times I started Dontavian Wicks, but not that week. And and then now they pull me back in again in some deeper leagues, picking up Dontavian Wicks and then seeing that practice report, and no longer considering that for the starting lineup. But yeah, I guess we'll see the dust settle again, and basically, we know there'll be a few shots downfield to Christian Watson. We know they kind of this is not a receiver, but it seemed like the Packers kind of built the plane out of Tucker Kraft this season, and then when he got injured, it took a few weeks to figure out what the new form of this offense would be when it's humming. And it seems like they started to find that against the Lions with the game of Wicks' life too, and with the usage of Christian Watson downfield. But once again, you read, and then we'll see what happens with Matthew Golden. I can't really play anyone of the receivers right now except Christian Watson. I feel like
I've been saying all season, I don't F with the Packers pass catchers. I got bullied into drafting Tucker Kraft late in drafting season by people telling me, Balky, you're crazy. You're not going to draft Tucker Kraft. No, I'm not. And then I was like, oh God, I probably should. And then it became a FOMO pick for me. So in regards to Watson, I have him on a couple of dynasty teams. I have him on one redraft team. Yeah, I'm starting him in all my leagues this week, with or without Jayden Reed. I'm with you. You cannot, in good conscience, unless you need like 1,000,000 to 1 shot. You can't, in good conscience, play Jayden Reed this week against the Bears. I'm more excited to see if he does play this week, how much they ramp him up for week 15. That's what I'm looking for with Reed. And he could end up factoring in to, who wins the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event and the FFPC Big Gorilla. I want to step out and take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about tonight's game. I think this is the best game of week 14 in the NFL. Cowboys Lions tonight. We're going to help you get your lineup set. He is Thomas Emerick, host of Remember That Game on the RotoViz podcast network, at Thomas Emerick on X as well. I'm Eric Balkman. Don't go anywhere. We're previewing Lions Cowboys. What do you do with St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Isaac Tesla, and we haven't talked about the Cowboys yet. So much more to come. You're watching the FFPC Insider Access show here on the Better Sports Network.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio, FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
We are broadcasting live the FFPC Insider Access show here on the Better Sports Network right now. My wife, making an appearance, wants to know if I can help her out with something. Yes, how can I help you? I will interrupt the great Thomas Emerick from RotoViz. Yes. Okay, all right. We had a minor plumbing issue in our house, just to let everybody know everything's good and nothing's been flooded. So there you go. I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. No good segue to go from plumbing at the Balkman house to the FFPC weekly challenge, but I'm going to try anyway. Andrew Cooper just told you that it is one of the most fun weekly games you can play. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players, win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team contests, 1 player per NFL team. You want CeeDee Lamb, you can't have George Pickens. You want David Montgomery, you can't have Jahmyr Gibbs. myffpc.com, myffpc.com is where to go for that. Thomas Emerick, the host of the Remember That Game podcast on the RotoViz podcast network, joining me tonight. Give him a follow over on X at Thomas Emerick. Let's talk about Thursday night football, fantasy football night in America. I got to flip it over to the game here pretty quick. We got kickoff in about 17 minutes. Not necessarily for tonight, Thomas, but when you consider the value of, FFPC rosters being locked here shortly, and you won't be able to make any more changes. The value of Malik Davis, we saw Jayden Blue being a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks. We've seen Malik Davis rumble in for a touchdown on Thanksgiving this past week in that Cowboys win. How valuable do you think Malik Davis is on FFPC rosters, and really any rosters the rest of the way, knowing that if Javonte Williams goes down, had Malik Davis top 20, top 15 running back? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the season for stashing running backs for sure, especially in offenses that are as dynamic as the Cowboys, perhaps none more so. And Javonte Williams, still has a hold on that role, and we Malik Davis is exciting, but we've yet to see a 5-touch game from Davis. But you earn more. I imagine you earn more work with breaking off a long one, like he did on Thanksgiving. For tonight, it's interesting. I think Tyler Guyton's out, the left tackle, and it's been a learning curve for him, but especially in pass protection. But in run blocking, it might be a bit of a drop-off for the Cowboys there. Nathan Thomas stepped in last week for Guyton, and I think it was like 77th out of tackles, all tackles last week, and PFF run block grading. And so that, especially since Guyton had graded in the green 3 of the past 4 weeks, had started to come on as like a good run blocker. That's something that might hurt for Dallas, and someone they'll want to get back, especially if you stash Malik Davis and he's starting in a few weeks.
I think where do you stand? So I'm gonna tell you how I stand on this, and I haven't really made up my mind as the season goes on if I should be doing the same thing. At the start of the season, so I play in the KFFSC, which again is kind of like a mini FFPC, where it's thousands of teams, and then you're looking to win the big grand prize at the end. I typically stay away from drafting the backup running backs for the starting running backs I draft. I want other people's backups. But now I wonder, does that change later on in the season? Does it change going in to the championship sprint? So if I had Javonte Williams and I've been targeting other people's running backs, should I backup running backs? Should I still be doing that? Or is there value in rostering a guy like Malik Davis if I have Javonte Williams on my team? The counter argument to that was if Williams goes down, you're probably not winning it anyway. Davis is not going to help you out. Davis would help you out if you had Williams, I beg your pardon, if you didn't have Williams and you had Chase Brown and James Cook, and then you could all of a sudden just flex out Malik Davis. That's how you win. I don't know if what your philosophy is on how you handle running backs in these large tournaments. And if Thomas, if it changes once we get to the final few weeks of the season where we're at right now.
Yeah, the calculation changes a ton. I'm probably not interested in that unless my seeding situation and the upshot as far as buy or no buy is decided. So in leagues where okay, I've already clinched the buy, I'm being a real weevil and stashing other playoff contenders, backup running backs in certain situations where you think that'll flow to another running back, like Christian McCaffrey. I'm more likely to stash Bijan or Brian Robinson if I feel like my playoff seeding situation is already settled, even if it's my own handcuff or someone else's handcuff. It's like the same philosophy there, based on playoff, what is already settled as far as playoffs.
I think that makes perfect sense. It's something that high stakes players are going to do what they're going to do. It's just a matter of personal preference on that. And like anybody, I'm still evolving the way I think about that going forward until it screws me over in a league. And then I'll obviously just go the opposite way after that, because it's going to happen. It happens to all of us. A lot of questions in the chat right now tonight. Trevor Hinnigan has a starter sit question. David Montgomery, Jordan Mason, or one Bam Knight. So this lot to unpack here as we look at running backs. I'm assuming that Trevor can only play one of these players. Montgomery obviously going off the board here tonight at home against the Cowboys. You have Jordan Mason, who's at home against the Commanders with, I don't want to say Aaron Jones status up in the air, but we'll see what happens. And then Bam Knight, who we have Trey Benson, probably not looking like he's playing again this week. Could be shut down for the remainder of the season. These are very, very close for me. I think the thing that I would say here is don't play Montgomery tonight. See what happens with Trey Benson. See what happens with Aaron Jones. And hopefully either Benson or Jones, one of them misses. And then I like Knight or Mason significantly better than Montgomery. And I'll say this too, as it stands right now, if both Jones and Benson play, I don't think Mason and Knight are all that crazy to start. So my advice here, Thomas, feel free to disagree. I'm going to sit Montgomery, and I want to see what happens with these backfields with practices tomorrow and see what happens on Sunday when I'll make my final decision. Yeah, I'll lose out on Montgomery, but I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, so the bets I in making, of course, you have to make a decision right before kickoff on. And my calculation at this moment is a decently strong bet that Jones plays and Mason is dust, and that Benson sits. So I'd be willing to make those bets, and for that reason, go Montgomery. Even though I had, in previous years in the Ben Johnson offense, that's one area in particular where I think that's actually proved out. And before the season, the case made sense, is that Montgomery's production is what gets hurt post Ben Johnson. And so even given all of that, I think Mason definitely is the first one I eliminate there. And then it's a close one with Bam. Slight side with Montgomery.
It's just been disappointing the last few weeks watching Montgomery just not do enough to be a needle mover in fantasy. And knowing that Dallas's rush defense has quite frankly improved quite a bit since the trade of Quinn Williams. You think about what Dallas has up the middle now with Kenny Clark and Quinn Williams. I mean, that is a tough defense to run on. And Montgomery does not make his money in the passing game the way Jahmyr Gibbs does. And that's what has me I just wonder how much of the upside I'm getting if I play Montgomery today. Now it's a total of 55. Certainly there is something to like about that as well. So that's what we think. Hopefully we helped you out, Trevor, on that one. Now, Christian Perez, I'm going to throw this one up here right now. I might need your help a little bit on this, Thomas. I'm not sure what to think on this. Christian Perez, Emeka Egbuka, or Easton? Who is the Easton that he is referring to? Am I just having a brain fart here?
Or is it super flex? We got Easton Stick versus Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
With Easton Stick somehow starting this week, and I just didn't realize.
Yeah, you don't want to wait till Monday. I mean, it's Egbuka for me if it's Egbuka or Easton Stick.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna go Egbuka there for sure.
Now, hold on. Now, I'm just seeing this right now, and I should have checked this earlier. Christian Perez also posted right below this, Egbuka or Christian Watson. So maybe it was the old autocorrect that got him. So that would make more sense. And I think this is a compelling conversation between Egbuka, who is going to be going up against the Saints, Christian Watson going up against the Bears. Both of these players are at home. I lean Egbuka in this case over Watson.
To definitely hyperbolize, but I feel this when I watch when Christian Watson's healthy, it's TO baby. Like that's what it reminds me of. And he's I mean just the air yards and target earning and rate of conversion on those 50-50 balls or the type of stuff you'd expect from elite receivers, but not other players you'd not expect to come down with. Like Christian Watson comes down with that so much, but he just can't stay healthy. And so, yeah, I mean, he's not TO, but I'm just I'm a big Christian Watson when healthy fan. I'm always starting him.
Yeah, I mean, and he looks so good on that. There was a pass. It was like I think it was a third down against Detroit on Thanksgiving, where Jordan Love just threw it to the sideline, just a dart, and Watson just plucked it out of the air, like effortless, just absolutely. It was like Mr. Miyagi with the chopsticks grabbing the fly, right? I mean, it just right in there, and this is what he can do when he's out there. So I get it. I think both of these guys are good starts. I lean towards Egbuka here because I'm always concerned with the Packers doing this thing where they just they run and run and run and keep these other teams in the game when their passing game is good enough to put these other teams away. I'm not sure that's what happens in Chicago or against Chicago this weekend, but I allow for the possibility of it. So that's where I stand on this. This is good. I like that the fact that we're disagreeing so much. Normally I have somebody on and we're always of one mind. And there's no pushback, but you're giving me stuff to think about. I know I'm giving you stuff to think about, as you've already said tonight, and definitely we're giving the viewers to think something to think about as well. Todd P70, Isaac Tesla or Romeo Dobbs has to make the decision tonight. Romeo, wherefore art thou my Romeo? Thomas, he's in my lineup over Isaac Tesla.
Yeah. I mean, with Amon-Ra back, even though I think it's Kennedy who mainly suffers from Amon-Ra back in the lineup. I still lean Dobbs because has Dobbs had has Tesla had more than like 5 targets in the game yet? I don't.
I have it right in front of me. I can tell you this: Tesla's season high in targets in a game. You're not going to believe this. It's 2. He has got 2 targets in week 3, and then last week against Green Bay, where he caught both of them for 35 yards and a touchdown. He has not even seen 3 targets in a game this season.
Too speculative for me for this week. Yeah.
And then the last one here, Lil Crazy Baller. Flex Darnell Mooney, Woody Marks, or Omarion Hampton if he's activated. Now, this is good that we're getting into Hampton, because Jim Harbaugh said that he's on track and looking good for Week 14 against the Eagles. But this goes into the whole Justin Herbert conversation we had, Thomas. It's a Monday night game, and we don't know. Like if you want to roll the dice, fine, go ahead. But the other thing in regards to Hampton this week, his first week back, and Kamani Vidal looked really good in the Chargers last game. And so if that's the case, I think that this is more of a like an old man slipping into a hot bath. That's Omari and Hampton in Week 14 for the Eagles. Like, I don't want to play him. I have him on a couple of leagues. I'm not waiting around on Monday night, because even if he plays, I don't think he's that big of a difference maker. Not to say Darnell Mooney and Woody Marks are difference makers, but I definitely trust the volume on Marks more than Hampton this week. And I think you can make the case that Darnell Mooney is more than interesting, given that there's probably going to be no Drake London this week as well. So if I had to rank these guys, I would put Hampton last on this list. And then between Darnell Mooney at home against the Seahawks or Woody Marks, who is at Kansas City, which granted is not the greatest matchup, I think I lean more towards Marks here. I put Marks here first, then Mooney, then Hampton. But Hampton's definitely third on this list for me.
Yeah, Marks, big, along with Walker, the two big red zone regression guys. I think we got coming up. Javonte finally broke out of that group last week with I think it was a receiving touchdown in the red zone. But Marks, the usage is there. Eventually, it's going to be him carrying across, and not Nick Chubb or Nico Collins on a handoff. They're finding creative ways to hand off touchdowns to people that aren't Marks, and I just bet on the regression there. Yeah, Hampton Monday night. I feel good about Herbert starting, but as you mentioned, Kamani Vidal has been pretty good, and the first game back, I could see snap count for Hampton. Darnell Mooney is a dynasty manager of his, a totally black-pilling year, that his production, even when there was one decent week, but other more weeks than not, even without London on the field, Mooney's disappointing a bit. I'm curious. Some receivers are better when they are the secondary option and struggle when they're the primary option. I wonder if that is Mooney, even having been a fan of him for a couple of years and bullish on him being being a good dynasty asset.
We have a rest of the season trade question here from Kaboom 1184. Bucky Irving or Omari and Hampton, they can make this trade potentially. Who do you like better for the rest of the year? Should Kaboom hang on to Irving, or should Kaboom give up Irving for Hampton? I'll give my thoughts. I want to get yours first on this one.
Oh, it's Bucky time. Yeah, I grabbed him like early second round Scott Fishbowl, and I'm no longer in contention.
The biggest endorsement for Bucky Irving the rest of the way.
But
he's coming on. You're right.
If that injury hadn't happened, I'm pretty sure I would still be in contention. It came down to that tight. Irving, when last time we saw him healthy in that Eagles game, he's catching like 7-yard touchdowns on top of like making hay in the run game. Irving, to me, I'm probably going to have him as a top 5 running back next season, and I'm going to forgive that injury luck this season.
I think you're right on that, and I'd rather have Irving the rest of the way as well, as opposed to Hampton. We have a situation with Vidal looking really, really good, where in Tampa, like Sean Tucker, Rashad White, when Irving came back, they didn't look all that great. So I would stand pat, and I would not I would not make the trade for Hampton here.
Also, actually, just a quick mention the weekly offensive line column. As I've talked about it this a lot through the year. Earlier in the year, before Hampton got hurt, they had Alt and Slater. Lost Slater earlier than Alt. Now they have neither. Down to Sawyer and Pipkins. Big drop off. Earlier in the season, Irving didn't have Gadecki and Wirfs in the field at the same time. And now both there. So much better offensive line picture for Irving coming back than Hampton coming back.
I'm trying to get. We have kickoff here in a little bit, and I don't know, Thomas, if you're trying to get it up, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to get up the Amazon Prime Video. God,
Here we go.
Cut that up for a great clip.
Here we go.
So I am trying to load it up right now, and I am not able to. I don't know if it's my TV or if it's not. I'm trying a different device right now. Are you having any problems with
No,
it?
just popped it up. Okay, so we 1st and 10, right to Amon-Ra.
Really? I don't know if you're effing with me right now. Are you dead serious on this?
Amon-Ra's on the board.
Here we go. I got it. So it is my television right now.
Walking to the sideline kind of funny, but looks like good enough to get open and get a catch.
So that was the first play from scrimmage. You're telling me was a pass to St. Brown?
Yep.
Okay. There we go.
7 yards to St. Brown.
2nd and 3. Okay, and they're already past the 40-yard line. 2nd and 3 for the Lions, who took the opening kickoff and are moving it right now. Jared Goff tried to get a screen to Jahmyr Gibbs. It was all for naught, and it's now 3rd and 3, 14-13 to go in the first half as we are underway in Detroit, taking on Big D, the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so I'm going to move on past the Cowboys-Lions. I talk too much, and I really have nothing else to say on this game. Whatever you did or didn't do, it's locked in at this point for the Cowboys and Lions because the game has started. Now, let's go back to some other things that we have not talked about. And I want to specifically talk about Kyren Williams here, who has been ceding some touches to one Blake Corum as what is that? About 20-yard pass. Jahmyr Gibbs mostly run after the catch. It's a first down Detroit now in Dallas territory. Pretty impressive stuff from Jahmyr Gibbs. Now let's go back to Kyren Williams and get your thoughts, Thomas, on this, because we have known Sean McVay to be a one running back man. And yet we see more and more Blake Corum. Kyren Williams limited in practice, according to Sarah Barshop about an hour ago. Williams told reporters after the loss to the Panthers, that his, quote, ankle is good because he had scar tissue from a previous injury that helped him when he was rolled up on. And I guess that's one way to look at it. That's certainly a take here. Williams looks like he's going to face the Cardinals. Blake Corum has been rotating in more and more. I'm not saying you bench Kyren Williams here. Maybe the better question here is Blake Corum, because in the FFPC main event in the Big Gorilla, you can play 2 flexes. So if you wanted to play 4 running backs and Corum is your 4th running back, maybe a little intriguing here. How do you look at this backfield situation shaping up?
I'm still only interested in Corum if I'm expecting extreme positive game script. My Noel, when the coaches talk about keeping guys fresh for the playoffs with the running back, workload, is that once it gets to the high leverage situation or back against the wall, they, we saw it we saw it with Sean McVay before last season, talking about the Kyren Williams. I want to scale him back, and then they fed him. And then we saw earlier this season when the Bills are cruising, Sean McDermott was talking about keeping James Cook, not overloading him and keeping him healthy for the playoffs. And then they lose to the Patriots. And next thing you know, they're not cruising to a bye. They're fighting for a playoff spot. And James Cook's getting 27 carries, 32 carries. And I think it's probably going to, my Noel is it's going to be the same situation. If the Rams, suddenly not the 1 seed anymore, in trying to claw back for that 1 seed and knowing, what gets you a lot of rest is getting a first round bye. Sean McVay is going to lean on his binky. And the split's like 65-25 backfield split right now. Not quite what it was last year, but still like pretty decently in Kyren Williams' favor of recent. And so I'm not really forecasting a rise in Corm's workload based off McVay's fresh comments, or based on what we've seen so far.
So we've seen in this game a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs. We have seen Gibbs with a 19-yard carry. We have seen Gibbs for a 26-yard catch, a Ross Dwelly catch, followed by a Jahmyr Gibbs loss of 2 yards, and then Jared Goff sacked by Justin Houston on 3rd and 8 from the Cowboys 10, goes for a loss of 10 yards. Jake Bates comes on, nails the field goal from 38 yards out. The Lions strike first tonight, 10:46 to go in the first quarter. Detroit up 3-0 with the Cowboys getting the ball back on the other side of the break on Prime. Normally, I don't do this, Thomas. Normally, I don't talk about receivers that are clearly past their prime, that are on their third team this season as far as what they mean for fantasy. I'm going to make a special exception for Adam Thielen tonight. Tom Pelissero posted this on X a couple of days ago, that it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, quote unquote, winning the Adam Thielen waiver lottery by claiming him after the Vikings decided to release him. Calvin Austin has not been great. Roman Wilson, probably even more of a disappearing act this year. Thielen was like a distant number 4 receiver and probably number 6 pass catcher, maybe even number 7 pass catcher on this Vikings team. But he goes to a situation where they are desperate for wide receivers and pass catchers. And normally I think like this is not something I'd concern myself with. And maybe it still is something I should not concern myself with. But it's a veteran receiver hooking up with a veteran quarterback in a situation where they need pass catchers. I don't think Thielen is in any kind of threat to go for 7 for 140 and 2 touchdowns on any given week, but 6 for 80, 5 for 75, 7 for 70. I don't know. I think that these are all in the realm of possibilities. And when you're looking for wide receiver help late in the season, this is a situation and a player that I think there is in the range of outcomes where this guy could be a wide receiver 3 for you down the stretch. I don't think that that's, where the odds would favor it, but I do think it's in the realm of possibilities. How much interest would you have in Adam Thielen, the Pittsburgh Steeler, for the remainder of the 2025 season?
Not that interested, but I do have 2 minds on it that are in conflict. The one that makes me more bearish is the Mike Tomlin sort of a player addition. Thor Nystrom had the tweet like on before the pickup was made that Mike Tomlin will say something like, "We can't eat soup with forks, we need spoons." Then the Steelers will sign a 2018 Pro Bowler to the practice squad. And then like a day later, they sign Adam Thielen. So it feels like a Tomlin go-to move that doesn't really do much. At the same time, Aaron Rodgers is kind of a weirdo about. He loves his chopped wide receiver, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and then Adam Thielen. So like, gosh, could he force Adam Thielen 6 targets? Yeah, I could see it. I'd be shocked if we're getting 40 total yards. So if you're absolutely desperate,
here's the thing. I would not be like nothing. Yeah. Like if you told me right now that Thielen comes in this week for Pittsburgh and gets 8 targets, he catches 6 of them for 70 yards, I would not even blink because that would not surprise me at all with the situation. I will say, to your point, I think that is unlikely, and I would not bet on that happening, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, I have an extra grind with the Steelers because the wild card round every year they subject the nation to this dreck of a wild card performance, and someone I hope someone stops it this year. It looks like there are a few teams ahead of Pittsburgh. Hopefully they hang on.
That will complete our Adam Thielen, Aaron Rodgers conversation, which, quite frankly, I think most of our viewers can admit went on probably a little bit too long. They are back in action in Detroit with the Cowboys taking over after a 27-yard return from Kevontae Turpin to the 32. We have a Javonte Williams carry for 4 yards, and then Dak Prescott hits George Pickens for a first down on an 11-yard catch. They are looking at the safety on the play. I think that's Harper for Detroit. Right now they're looking at him as he is on a knee on the field. And I think they're going to take a quick break. 10:15 to go in the first quarter. Speaking of injuries, let's talk about the Giants running back situation. Dan Dugan, who covers the Giants, posted on X a couple of days ago. After the Giants game, Tyrone Tracy told reporters that he left that Monday Night Football game against New England with a hip contusion and a stinger, which is not great and not great. However, these are things you can probably get around for the following week. And for anybody who was all in on Devin Singletary, I think you better think twice before you put all your chips in on that player. Singletary, however, has eaten enough into the backfield touches, both catching and rushing the ball with no Cam Scadaboo. Tyrone Tracy and Singletary both kind of cannibalizing each other. Do you have a favorite in this backfield, or is this one to avoid for you, Thomas, as we try to glean fantasy goodness anywhere we can for the remainder of the season? What about the Giants backfield?
Yeah, for Bruce, I'm thinking he's back in this week. That's just gonna be the bet I would make right now on Thursday. And if Tracy's playing, I actually feel kind of good about starting him. He'd been getting a pretty decent workload of recent, and then left early, so the workload wasn't there on Monday. But it's a guy who, is shown recently can get 20 touches, depending on the situation. Now, and if Tracy's out, I'm not nearly as enthusiastic about Singletary as I would be for Tracy if he was in. But my bet right now is that Tracy plays, and like our RB2's like realistic.
What was not realistic was Javonte Williams gaining any kind of yardage positively on that first down play. It was a short pass left, and he was wrapped up by Barnes in the backfield. -5 yards on first down. However, Dak Prescott has just made lemonade out of lemons as he hits Jake Ferguson over the middle for a first down. He goes deep on the following first down, and I don't know who that was on that play. It was not Lamb. It was not Pickens.
Oh, Flournoy.
Oh, was it Ryan Flournoy? Okay, it was Ryan Flournoy. Could have been a touchdown. I don't know. It looked like there was a little bit of a miscommunication on the route, but it ends falls harmlessly in the end zone, and it is now 2nd and 10 from the Lions 40 as the Cowboys are driving. We're going to give you an update on that as we move forward here. Want to take our final break of the program tonight. When we come back, all your start-sit questions answered. You got questions about Kenneth Gainwell, Alec Pierce, Cade Otton, Jacoby Brissett. We have your answers here. He's Thomas Emerick, the host of the Remember That Game podcast on the RotoViz Podcast Network. I'm Eric Balkman here on the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot more for you coming up right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in a million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in, and you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio, FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
We roll on here on FFPC Insider Access, Better Sports Network, celebrating Fantasy Football Night in America with y'all tonight. So glad to have you aboard for the Cowboys and Lions. And wow, what an end to the series it was on that possession for the Cowboys. After that Flournoy incompletion, Javonte Williams gets no yardage on a rush. It is an incomplete pass to George Pickens. And to no one's surprise, Brandon Aubrey nails a 57-yard field goal to tie the game up. 3-3. They've gone to a break on Amazon Prime Video. 8:07 to go in the first quarter. We roll on tonight. My name is Eric Balkman. He is Thomas Emerick from RotoViz, the RotoViz family of podcasts. He hosts Remember That Game, which we'll get into a little bit at the before we get to the top of the hour here tonight, because I think it's worth exploring here. I want to get to some start or sits here and help out people the best we can, Thomas, moving forward into League Championship Week in the FFPC main event and the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. Certainly a lot of people watching, having everything on the line, maybe trying to make the playoffs as well, something that we need to consider here. If we look at running backs first, and that's where I want to go to lead things off here. If we're looking at running backs, which one would you rather start this week? Kareem Hunt, who is going to be at home against the Texans, also with Isaiah Pacheco, Brashard Smith, Damian Pierce. God knows who else is in that backfield. Would you rather play him, or would you play Devin Neal at Tampa in a game where Alvin Kamara still has not practiced yet this week?
Yeah, that Kamara DMP Thursday gets me leaning Neal. Tyler, once again, I'm going to sing the Tyler Shuck praises. Like, actually getting that IV drip to the Saints offense, and with Tampa being a pass funnel and Devin Neal seeming to have capacity for a decent number of targets from the running back position, I lean there. Even it's close though, because Kareem Hunt has got a pretty good workload since Pacheco went out. And even when Pacheco was back, I think it was 14-3 in the carry department on Thanksgiving. But I might be bullish on both relative to the field, but slightly more on Neal, in part because, offensive line once again. See if Trey Smith's coming back, and Simmons is injured. The other tackle, Juwan Taylor, is now also injured. We could be hitting a critical mass injury situation just in time to play those Texans defensive linemen.
I want to look this up too, because you mentioned Simmons. And I thought maybe I'm wrong on this, which is why I want to look this up. Yeah, he's on IR right now with the wrist injury that happened yesterday. He's going to miss the rest of the regular season. However, he could come back in the postseason. We'll see what happens if the Chiefs even make the postseason on that. So something certainly to watch for as we move forward here with that Chiefs ground game. Kenneth Gainwell or Chris Rodriguez. These are the next guys I'm going to pit against each other in the start or sit section of this show tonight. Kenneth Gainwell is at Baltimore this week, Thomas. An underwhelming performance in week 13 after really balling out in week 12. And then Chris Rodriguez at above average rush defense for Minnesota. but he looks like the guy there over Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and he could get Jayden Daniels back as his quarterback this week. Lot to unpack here. If you can only play one, Gainwell or Rodriguez in week 14, sir.
Yeah, and this is one where I'm probably bearish on both relative to the field. In that Steelers-Bills game, you can see how once again hitting critical mass of demoralization. Once it gets to that point where the defense is expecting the offense to leave the field in 3 plays, the bottom falls out for the defense.
Yeah.
Once again, I think the Steelers, like I have them marked for. Tomlin's a good coach at keeping players motivated and all that, but it really seems like the bottom is falling out for that Steelers offense, and therefore, even though I wasn't touching Krosky Merritt, Committee Merritt in August, because this is what Kingsbury does, and I think it's going to happen with Rodriguez too. Like, I'm just assuming back to full on committee as Kingsbury does. I will still give Rodriguez the edge.
Yeah, Rodriguez gets the edge for me too on this. I trust him, and maybe it's because I like Jaylen Warren quite a bit. But I'm going to give Rodriguez the edge here. A little bit of controversy here in the Cowboys-Lions game here. David Montgomery, a carry for 2 yards, an incomplete pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then another on that incomplete pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They initially ruled it a fumble, which looked, I can't imagine how that was a fumble. Well, cooler heads prevailed, and they ruled it an incomplete pass. It didn't matter because Goff has thrown another incomplete pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown on 3rd and 8, and the Lions, I would say, would normally be punting or 4th and 8 from their own 49-yard line, but who the hell knows what Dan Campbell is capable of. They could easily go for it here, and it wouldn't surprise me at all as we wait to see what the Lions do from midfield. 7:19 to go in the first quarter. They are lined up to punt it, which we have to check. Can we get a wellness check on Dan Campbell? Is he actually the one making this call? Pretty bizarre that he's punting from midfield, but he is. The Cowboys have caught it at the 8-yard line. Looks like a fair catch, and the Cowboys will indeed take over. Now, getting back to one final running back question here, Thomas, tonight. With Tyler Allgeier, I think Colm Kelly from RotoViz made mention of this, a meme that happened. I haven't seen it on X, but I guess it was out there. 2 separate paths set next to each other. And there's one path that's like super, like got all these obstacles and this winding path and impossible. And the bottom says the path to a Bijan Robinson touchdown. And then the other one, basically straightforward, easy to get there, the path to a Tyler Allgeier touchdown. We saw it again last week. Allgeier just gets touchdowns and Bijan Robinson doesn't, which you're not sitting Bijan Robinson, but maybe the question is here, does Allgeier become a flex? And when you consider the state of the Tennessee Titans in a game that might be more of a positive game script from Tony Pollard than we've seen in weeks, where Tyjae Spears is not out there the entire time because they're not going to be trailing. They're going against Cleveland this week. I think this is an interesting FFPC flex question this week. Tyler Allgeier or Tony Pollard? I mentioned Pollard is actually going up against the Browns in Cleveland this week. Tyler Allgeier is taking on the Seahawks at home.
Yeah, I'm betting. I haven't looked at the under. It could be 9 points. I'm betting. I'm betting the under.
The Titans Browns game.
I'm betting Titans under. No,
okay. Hold on. You
that
have
was demoralizing against Jacksonville.
Thomas, have you not seen the Titans Browns over under?
No. It's like 30. Perfect. It's like 33, right? 33.
Yeah, 33.5 in that game.
I haven't seen the Titans under, but
no,
I bet it's got to be like 10.
Well, okay. Well, here's the thing: the Browns are 4.5-point favorites in that game, but the total for the game is 33.5. This is like an old school Big 12 Patrick Mahomes Texas Tech first half over under. Whoever they're playing, it's like 33.5 for both teams in the first half. It's 33.5 for the game. 1-11 Tennessee, 3-9 Cleveland, but I'm trying to sell you on Tony Pollard. I don't know if it's making a dent at all.
Yeah, I'm just pretty disillusioned with the rookie year Cam Ward experience. Some of the throws are great, but Geno Smith 8 in garbage time against the Jaguars, and then Cam Ward just like missing wide open throws, and they're stuck at 25-3, like the whole second half, and that was tough to watch against that Titans Jags game. I watched a lot of it because I like to torture myself and bet on teams like the Titans and the Max Brosmer Vikings and just take the points. But so there is an emotional reaction I am having to the Titans performance last week and making me like, all right, throw out all Titans. So I get the workload angle, though I do like that at Tyler Allgeier. Unfortunately, Bijan Robinson has to deal with the rich man's Zach Charbonnet.
And hopefully nobody's facing this decision, Ashley, when it comes to this, Thomas, but I do want to bring it up because I think it's worth talking about when we're trying to squeeze out every possible amount of fantasy goodness here on the show. Okay. We have a situation in the game. We are looking at, so obviously the Cowboys took over. Now there's a penalty for offensive holding, which backed the Cowboys up. And then there was also a penalty in Cavonte Turpin for an invalid fair catch signal that was declined. On first down, Javonte Williams rushes up the middle for 2 yards. Then Dak Prescott catches a 3-yard pass. On third down, 3rd and 5 from the 10, Prescott has been sacked. They're calling it in the end zone for a safety by the pride of Iowa, Jack Campbell. The replay official has since reversed the ruling on this safety, and the Cowboys will have it at their own 4th and 14. What was a 5-3 game here in the bottom of the 4th inning has gone back to a 3-3 game. 5:38 to go in the first quarter. We'll see what the Cowboys do here on 4th down, and we'll see what kind of field position Detroit gets taking over here, assuming the Cowboys don't fake it, which I don't think they will. Okay.
What a feeling seeing a total above 50 in 2025. Oh, it feels so fresh.
We've seen like certain games flirt with it, and tonight we actually see it. And I think this is horrible. It's going to leave such a bad taste in our mouth because, and I said this at the top of the broadcast, Thomas, I think this is the best game of the slate the entire week. You have so many good teams and at least exciting teams on bye. The Giants aren't great, but how many exciting games have they been in this year? A bunch. San Francisco fully healthy. They're off this week. New England, the class of the AFC, they're off this week. And the resurgent Carolina Panthers are off this week. So it kind of stinks as far as that goes, but it is what it is. We put up with it. Tom Kennedy with a nice punt return of 21 yards to the Dallas 42. So the Cowboys will take over, or beg your pardon, the Lions will take over from the Cowboys 42-yard line as we move forward. 5:24 to go in the first quarter. Let's talk about some receivers here tonight, Thomas, as far as who are starting and who are sitting. If I was to pose to you, Alec Pierce in Jacksonville is one of your options. Is it good enough of an option for you to sit in that same game, Brian Thomas against the Colts, in what is expected to be a Sauce Gardner-less defensive backfield? Who you got, Pierce or Thomas, if you can only play one?
Oh, that's a tough one because with Brian Thomas, we've seen him do it with Mac Jones, but not really Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
And is it trust on whether you get a hospital ball or is it chemistry? And I've seen Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce have that chemistry, and I've seen Alec Pierce fully extend his body in between like 2 or 3 defenders to catch passes 40 yards downfield. And the production's been decent this year, so I'll go Pierce there, even with the fractured leg for Daniel Jones.
Can I ask you this? You probably don't know this off the top of your head, which is what I'm looking for. How many receiving yards do you think Pierce has so far this season with 5 games to go on the schedule?
I mean, oh gosh, I don't know, 600,
600 and what?
32.
Good guess. He's actually at 689, which it seems high for me. But then when you think about what he's been able to do this season, he has had no games. And maybe this is interesting to you, maybe it's not. It's interesting to me. His lowest yardage output at any game this season was 26. And that was 2 weeks ago against Kansas City when he only caught 1 pass. You look at the rest of Pierce's receiving yardage, which I think is important because he is such a downfield threat. Thomas, 78, 84, 115, 69, 98, 67, 67, 68. He did have 36 and 48 in the first couple weeks of the season, but he has really come on. He's seen double-digit targets in a couple of weeks as well. I know there's talk, and I'm not willing to buy it yet, but maybe I should be, about Pierce actually being the number 1 option in Indy over Michael Pittman. I'm going to roll with Pierce as well. Mike Dempsey from SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, who covers the Jacksonville Jaguars, and has said that there is a sentiment within the organization that Brian Thomas does not fit what they want to do in Jacksonville and could be traded this offseason. And if there's already that going on right now, man, I'm breaking ties against that guy. Alec Pierce looks awesome. He's in a contract year. I know you mentioned his quarterback playing with a broken leg. I'm with you. I think you got to play Pierce over Brian Thomas this week. I think I might actually be faced at that decision in one of my leagues, and that's the way I'm rolling with as well. A completed pass here for Jahmyr Gibbs on first down for 4 yards. And then Anthony Ferkser catches a 7-yard pass, good enough for a Lions first down, as they now have it 1st and 10 from the Dallas 31, 4:18 to go in the first quarter. Jayden Higgins, who has been coming on, as we have seen many a rookie receiver do at the second half, or at least the third of the year. Would you play him over Xavier Worthy this week? Jayden Higgins is going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously in that same game, Worthy at Arrowhead taking on that Texans defense. Would you play Higgins over Worthy? Where do you weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, Higgins has gained a lot of trust in recent weeks. And because of the brand, I'll go back to offensive line and possibly hitting critical mass there. Right guard Trey Smith out last week, probably didn't practice again Thursday. Once again, both tackles could be out. Caliendo was in for Smith last week and had the lowest pass block grade of all guards that week. It was graded really low either way. And so we're hitting critical mass offensive line injuries, and that's where I start to it's a offensive line injuries and continuity. It's a lower order factor. Volume is far more important, but even on volume, Higgins, like I would assume they'd get a similar amount of passing volume, Worthy, Higgins and Worthy this week. So slight edge to Higgins there. Though the Worthy situation's been kind of weird recently.
Yeah, weird and awful if you have him on your teams, right? Like it's been super frustrating. I'll tell you what else is frustrating. When you call a pass for tackle Dan Skipper to catch it, and he drops it, that's been frustrating for Detroit. There was an illegal shift on Detroit on that play anyway, so there was no play after Skipper drops that pass. Jahmyr Gibbs, a catch for 2 yards from Jared Goff, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown catches a 27-yard pass down to the 7-yard line. We get a
Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams. I was like, Jay Williams, that Javonte Williams? Why am I? And then I was thinking,
no, he stepped out at the 1.
Okay. So Jameson Williams runs out of bounds at the 1-yard line. He gets a 6-yard carry. It is now 2nd and goal from the 1 yard line. You're ahead of me.
I am. Yeah, I just realized that, so I'm slowing down. Yeah.
No, it's fine because I want you to just bring it alive for us right now as we set up this play. 2nd and goal from 1. Obviously, a lot of Gibbs owners. Hopefully, Gibbs gets this in. We gave a lot of Montgomery advice. Maybe he gets it in here as well. It is a handoff. What's the result of the play here, Thomas?
Yeah. Try to bench Montgomery if you can, because the goal line carries are. I love that the Lions built the whole plane out of Jahmyr Gibbs. That's one way to move to still get it done post Ben Johnson and touchdown Gibbs, man.
Yeah, so Skipper reports is eligible on this play as well, and Gibbs runs up the middle for a touchdown. I just saw the Jameson Williams run. He didn't get in on that? That looked like a touchdown to me.
Speed even in slow-mo with J-Mo. Also, Dan Campbell remembers that game. Pass to Skipper against the Cowboys. I think that was a couple of years ago where something was confused in the communication on Dan Skipper's reporting on a 2-point conversion, I believe it was.
They've been ESPN was doing a thing on this like within the last day or two, like the anniversary of the Skipper game. Which was the game. That was a huge yes. We all remember that game. Thanks to remember that game. Certainly. And by the way, the Jake Bates extra point is good. 10-3 Dallas trails Detroit here. 2:14 to go in the first quarter. I will say this. I just saw the replay of Jameson. He did step out of bounds at the 1.5 yard line. So that was a good call. It looked like in real time that he scored. And by the way, you are right. They slowed it down, and it looked like Jameson Williams was still like running in real time. That's how fast that guy is. Yeah. But yeah, congratulations to all the Gibbs owners. You get an early touchdown here tonight. Okay. Luther Burden is a player I have talked about on this podcast the last several weeks. I'm going to bring him up again tonight. In the terms of who would you rather flex out in your FFPC leagues this week? Is it Luther Burden at Lambeau Field taking on the Packers, or is it one John Mechie who is at home against a kind of resurgent Dolphins defense, Thomas?
Yeah, and a lot of people had the Mechie, Adonai Mitchell waiver decision last week, and both got decent, target volume still, but at 80, absolutely big dogged Mechie there as far as hitting the nuts that week. Luther Burden, you see that usage ticking up, like the target percentage on routes run has always been good, and now we're seeing like the snap rate get above 50%. So if you want to buy that direction sort of trending, and then maybe hopefully DJ Moore, they use him as as more of an H-back, and we can get Luther Burden some of the wide out work that DJ Moore has been getting. That's a kind of projection and going on a limb prediction I feel comfortable making and throwing Burden into my flex.
I would rather play Burden this week than Mechie. We saw Mechie last week, 4 for 19, and Adonai Mitchell obviously dominated. His air yards stat over the last 3 weeks has been out of control. What do you make long-term? Like, I know the Jets have to figure out quarterback, but knowing that AD Mitchell could be playing opposite Garrett Wilson for the next couple of years, what do you make of his dynasty prospects, and how do you feel about Adonai Mitchell, not only for the remainder of 2025, but especially 2026 and going forward in New York here, Thomas Emerick?
Yeah, I mean, Adonai Mitchell, unlike to the degree of more than anyone, was the most talented player I've seen that will also find some way to screw up every time. and when he tossed that one ball, when I didn't think he was just like showboating or anything. I think he looked like he's genuinely got nervous. He's like, I didn't screw up this time, and then try to change hands to really try not to screw up and get stripped, and then he lost it, and now he's on the Jets, but he's always so talented, and to see a game where he put it all together was just such a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm super bullish on I want to be, I really want to be someone who has Adonai Mitchell in Dynasty because I really like the upside there. Also, the Bears, this Bears team, you know what gives you vibes of? The 2011 Niners. That first John Harbaugh or the first Jim Harbaugh year of the Niners, and the run concepts and the quarterback play that is giving you just enough at the right times, but is limiting you a little bit, and the physicality. What do you think about that? This year's Bears teams with that first Jim Harbaugh Niners teams that just suddenly turned it around in 1 year and suddenly, might get a bye in the NFC.
I see it. I will say, I don't know. I feel like those Harbaugh Niners teams weren't necessarily as talented, or at least as pedigreed, maybe is a better way to say it, on offense as this Chicago team was. And I will say, I think that the defense was more disciplined in San Francisco than they are in Chicago. Chicago's been really opportunistic this year, which I guess San Francisco was too back in the day. But I do see some similarities between what we're seeing from the Bears. And by the way, the Bears at Lambeau, at Cleveland, I think it's at Cleveland. I could be wrong on that. Then Soldier Field against the Packers, then the Niners, and then I can't remember who they play the last week of the season. For fantasy purposes, it doesn't matter because it's week 18, and that's why I can't remember. But we'll see what this Bears team is made of here going forward over these next 3 or 4 weeks. It is a first down for the Cowboys after Kevontae Turpin returns it to their own 30. Javonte Williams busts off a 7-yard carry and then a 2-yard carry. Ryan Flournoy catches a 4-yard pass to make it a first down, and then Javonte Williams a 3-yard run. It is going to be 2nd and 7 now from the Cowboys 46. And we have reached the end of the first quarter, the second quarter starting in just minutes here. We have to go rapid fire on these last few ones because the quarterback ones I'm heavily invested in to see what you're saying, Thomas, because that's quarterback decisions I'm facing in my leagues. Let's do tight ends first. Evan Engram this week. Would you rather play Evan Engram, the tight end, against the Las Vegas Raiders? He of the Denver Broncos. That game is in Vegas. Would you play him or would you play Dallas Goedert this week on Monday Night Football at the Chargers?
Yeah, I'm going Engram. The Eagles offense is just so toxic.
I just can't trust Goddard. I mean, it's just been so hit or miss. And so I'm going to go with Engram here as well. Cade Otton, who is at home against the Saints, versus Mason Taylor, who's at home against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I like the bigger pie in the pass game right now for the Jets with Tyrod. So give me Mason Taylor.
Mason Taylor's the guy I select too. I mean, there's just, assuming Evans and Godwin and McMillan, all these guys play, I don't know what role there is for Otton, but I do see a role for Mason Taylor. Mike Gesicki at the Buffalo Bills this week, or TJ Hawkinson catching passes, we think, from JJ McCarthy this week against the Commanders.
Yeah, McCarthy's back, Burrow's back, and I'll go Gesicki.
You're going to go Gesicki. I'm going to go Hawkinson in this case. I think T. Higgins returns from his concussion, and that neuters Gesicki a little bit. I think it's close, but I'm going to roll with Hawkinson here, although I think the point you make is valid. Now, for the fun part of the show for me, these first 2 quarterback decisions I'm facing in my leagues this week. Would you play, this is a dynasty league I'm in, Jacoby Brissett this week? Would you play him, Brissett, who is taking on the Rams at home, or would you play Baker Mayfield, who's at home against the Saints, maybe getting all these pass catchers back?
Yeah, I mean, Brissett is just locking in the bonus every week, but it has to. Just every week it feels like it has to end at some point. And bullish on the Bucs offense. So right now it's finishing strong. So Baker.
That's who I have in right now. I have Mayfield in over Brissett. This next one, no pressure here, Thomas. I co-own this team with my 12-year-old son, and we are facing a Daniel Jones versus Bo Nix decision this week. Nix at the Raiders, Daniel Jones at the Jaguars. I won't tell you who he is telling me we should start. I want to know what you think first.
I mean, I'll go DJ. I think Colts bounce back this week. I'm hoping for shootout there with Jacksonville.
Yeah. That'd be nice. Although we do have Bo Nix in right now. so I will show him this clip And just so he's aware, like, hey, listen, if you're playing Knicks, this is against Thomas Emerick, is his advice tonight.
Knicks still run, so that's he might be right there. Knicks still runs,
and he does. And like the other thing too, that when you consider, like, that could be a game that the Broncos get up by 2 or 3 scores, and then no, Knicks isn't passing at all, and he's not running at all. So something to consider there. Whereas if it turns into a shootout with Indy and Jacksonville, you want Daniel Jones in there at that point. We'll make that decision Sunday morning. Last one tonight, Sam Darnold at Atlanta, Caleb Williams at Green Bay. Which is the better start?
Give me Caleb, room for shootout.
The Remember This Game or Remember That Game podcast is available anywhere you get podcasts, including the RotoViz podcast network. We just did, or we saw, the Mariners-Yankees 1995 ALDS game with you and Representative Adam Smith. Anything planned in the hopper going forward that we can look forward to here, Thomas?
Back at the drawing board right now, but I would love to bring back some of the RotoViz faves from past and present who've been on the show multiple times, like Denny Carter, Peter Overzet, and then there right now, Dave Cabin, Colm Kelly, Sean Siegel, Blair Andrews, and folks you see you hear on the RotoViz airwaves.
And all those guys, I mean, pretty much all those, I think, except for Overset, I think all those, and Denny Carter, actually, the rest of those guys all have co-hosted this show before too, which is, a lot of people are familiar with those guys. And we are now familiar with one Thomas Emerick, at Thomas Emerick on X. Check out the Remember That Game podcast anywhere you get your podcast. This was a pleasure, man. Great job tonight. Thank you so much for hopping aboard, and we will continue to listen and download every time you turn out a new episode. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend, sir.
You too.
That is going to complete our episode tonight. Check out the FFPC Weekly Challenge live now, myffpc.com. 1 player per team. Win up to $2,500 this weekend, myffpc.com. Thanks to Thomas Emerick and our producer, Sean Engel. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, with Establish the Runs, John Daigle, making his return to this program for the Falcons and Buccaneers. For Sean Engel, for Thomas Emerick, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been Fantasy Football Night America, presented to you by FFPC Insider Access, live on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the rest of the game, everybody. Talk with you next week.